Fresh and fearless, comedian Niki Moore lets us know how she's making her mark on the DC comedy scene.
Plus, real beer made by real people. Get an inside tour of DC Brau, the district's first packaging brewery to operate in nearly 60 years.
We have those stories coming up. The news rundown is straight ahead. We Are Washington starts now. Welcome to We Are Washington. Niki Moore spent 30 years as an affordable housing manager, but a chance encounter led her to give comedy a try, and the experience changed her life forever. Coming up, we'll introduce you to one of DC's funniest comics and find out how she fell in love with stand-up.
And later, it's the district's first production brewery for over half a century. We'll take you to the DC Brau Brewery in Northeast, where they're blazing a trail and serving up the suds one bottle at a time. That's all coming up, but now, the news rundown.
The 35-day partial government shutdown is over, but for many DC residents, the impact is still being felt. Mayor Muriel Bowser says she is proud of the way the district stepped up to assist impacted residents with everything from food programs to mortgage assistance.
These are unprecedented times. I am proud of our city and our community. The neighbors have stepped up. Our nonprofit community has stepped up to help us, and that we have built a government that is resilient and a government that can deal with tough times.
When that huge number of workers who come in every day to work in federal buildings downtown are not here, everything is affected.
The city also stepped up during the shutdown to provide services such as trash removal at the National Mall and other federal parks in the district at an estimated cost of $46,000 a week.
Mayor Bowser joined Chef Jose Andres and Chef Spike Mendelson in providing meals to furloughed employees as part of the Chefs for Feds program. The program was established by World Central Kitchen, which is a nonprofit organization devoted to providing meals in the wake of natural disasters. This time, the pop-up kitchen was set up near the U.S. Navy Memorial to provide free meals to the more than 800,000 government workers and their families impacted by the shutdown.
We're grateful for Chef Andres and Chef Mendelson, Chef Spike, who's here, and chefs around our nation who are stepping up to the plate to help people.
I think the mayor always has shown great leadership in being supporting her people and different initiatives around this city. For her being here, showing support to the federal workers and all the volunteers, many of them federal workers, only shows the type of leader she is. She cares and she shows it by showing up.
The Chefs for Feds program expanded across the country during the shutdown and included various chain restaurants providing free meals to furloughed workers and their families. Mayors from hundreds of cities across the country gathered in D.C. for the 87th annual winter meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
Fighting childhood obesity, pet-friendly initiatives, clean water, and affordable housing, just some of the vast array of topics discussed as part of the three-day conference. The policy positions adopted at the annual meeting are distributed to the president and Congress.
Our residents rely on us every single day to keep our communities moving forward, to keep them safe, and to provide the basics, from health care to education to picking up trash. In many ways, it is so fitting that America's mayors are right here in Washington, D.C., just steps from the White House and steps from the Capitol, collaborating, working together to better our cities. At the same time, we're calling on our federal government to do the same. Because one thing that we have seen year after year is that when the federal government can't find a way to get the job done, America's mayors will.
During the annual meeting, Mayor Bowser was elected to USCM Advisory Board. The Conference of Mayors is the official nonpartisan organization of cities with populations of 30,000 or more.
Access to healthy food is the goal of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. Mayor Bowser and the mayor of Madison, Wisconsin signed on to the pact as co-chairs of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Food Policy Task Force. The cooperative international agreement aims to improve access to healthy food and sustainability in cities all over the world.
Georgetown University held its third annual Mayor's Forum and a conversation about innovation, infrastructure, and inclusion. Mayor Bowser joined mayors from Dayton, Ohio and Burnsville, Minnesota for a wide-ranging discussion of the challenges and benefits of local government.
When you look at our programming, we try to look at it in all of its many elements, whether it's federal government, whether it's state government, whether it's global politics. Just as important as any of those is local government and public service at the most local level, where the notion of public service meeting the public is the most acute and the most real and the most relevant.
Hundreds of trained volunteers gathered at the Columbia Heights Education Campus before fanning out across the district for the annual point-in-time count.
The annual census of persons experiencing homelessness is conducted each winter on a single night in January to provide policymakers with critical information about the scale and scope of the issue in our region. The point-in-time count also provides the district with an opportunity to raise awareness about services available for the homeless in D.C. According to last year's PIT results, the district saw a 7.6% decrease in overall homelessness and a 21% decrease in family homelessness. The first of its kind medical marijuana dispensary is now open in Southeast. Mayor Bowser helped cut the ribbon on Anacostia Organics, which is the first licensed cannabis business east of the river.
We started doing a lot of research, a lot of travel, and just throwing ourselves in the cannabis industry. And we found out that most of the medical marijuana card holders at that time reigned for Wards 7 and 8. However, they didn't have access to their medications. There was no dispensary in Ward 7 and 8. And of course, you know, I got a lot of Mary Berry in me. So we took that information to the council and to the mayor's office, and we said, this is an opportunity for you to correct this and make this accessible to every resident in Washington, D.C., not just those west of the river.
In 2016, the Bowser administration created a new division within the Department of Health devoted to advancing science, technology, and innovation in the field of medical marijuana.
The African American Mayors Association held its 2019 winter reception at Georgia Brown's. Mayor Bowser was among those in attendance. The AAMA is the only organization representing African American mayors in the U.S. It was launched in 2014 in D.C.
It's back to the 80s in the best way possible, with vinyl and fat laces and Rapper's Delight in heavy rotation, all part of the Hip Hop Museum pop-up experience. The exhibition opened at the Blind Wino in Southwest just in time to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Rapper's Delight. Lots of old school memorabilia to take you back to the good old days. Record players, Run DMC, action figures, and even the boxing gloves from LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out. Mama Said Knock You Out. You can hear it playing in your head, can't you?
Yeah, it brings back a lot of good memories. I'm probably dating myself, but one thing the museum does is they kind of bring back a lot of older hip hop artists to talk to people who are there. They brought
experienced hip hop artists,
experienced hip hop artists, exactly. And they brought in Shabba-Doo, who made his mark in the movies Breakin' 1 and 2 and Electric Boogaloo, and to kind of teach kids, introduce them to some breakdance moves, and with the parents, and seemed like a great event. So they're doing lots of fun things. I really hope the museum becomes a permanent thing.
Well, we celebrate pop-ups in this city. There's a lot
yes,
of different
yes,
types
we love
of pop-ups.
The pop-ups. Yes,
this might be my favorite one. I
think so.
There's
definitely mine.
A lot to see.
A lot going on.
40th. I couldn't believe it when I read it. 40th anniversary of Rapper's Delight.
Very scary. Yes.
Isn't that crazy? Well, a great thing to check out and experience. And it's a pop-up, so a limited time only, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to talk about some of the items from the government shutdown, the partial government shutdown, and its impact here in D.C. Because, one of the things that I was thinking about as this was going on and hearing about all of the different items that were happening inside the district and all the different programs to support furloughed workers, how is it that D.C., when the government shuts down, the federal government, how is it that D.C. always remains open and, as is said, picks up the slack in places like picking up trash and keeping, everything running on the federal side of the government? And, it's an interesting point that D.C. used to actually be impacted by these sorts of shutdowns, but over the years, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton placed some provisions in the federal spending bills that allowed D.C. to operate on its own budget when these shutdowns would happen, when this sort of thing would happen. So we are still able to do that, but important to note that, just because as a city we can still operate, we're not immune from the impacts of it.
Oh, not at all. But you can only imagine how bad it could have been if we hadn't had those provisions in place.
Absolutely.
I mean, 35 days of schools being closed, and even despite being open, the mayor has talked about the city has had to pick up a lot of slack, and so
it's a tremendous amount of pressure. It really is. So
yeah,
it's good that these things were in place to be able to ease some of that pressure.
Yeah, and very glad we are back up and running, back to normal. Still to come, Niki Moore didn't start out pursuing a career in stand-up, but now she's making her mark on the DC comedy scene.
And later, we're taking you on a tour of the only packaging brewery inside DC. Come with us to check out DC Brau.
From the first time Niki Moore performed a stand-up routine at a friend's birthday party, she was hooked.
Nearly a decade later, her bold style and no-holds-barred comedy is part of DC's thriving underground comedy scene. Take a look.
What your name is?
Niki Moore is the best.
I'm experiencing now the happiest part of marriage, the divorce.
You're the best. This is a friendly situation.
Tell me how you got interested in comedy.
I got interested in comedy as a fluke. I spent 30 years of my life as an affordable housing manager specializing in low-income housing, and I was really, really good at it. I considered myself then the Olivia Pope of property management.
And that's not a very funny job.
No, it's
that's
not.
Like a totally straight job.
And I managed to find the humor. People used to come into my office and, this is funny, this should be a reality show, because I had a very unusual approach to property management. And you have to, because those sometimes are very, very, very unusual circumstances.
So how did you make that transition? You're just a regular, interesting, charismatic property manager, and then you decide, you know what, I gotta get into comedy.
We thought that we could do a reality show about property management. And in doing that, I somehow talked to a friend of mine who was a comedian at the time, a local comic, and I said, you know what, I'm funny, I could get on stage. I wanted to get on stage to further the reality show project. And he said, okay, everybody think they funny. You put together 5 minutes and I'll put you on stage. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I did it and I killed. And it was actually cathartic. It was cathartic. It was therapeutic. I got on stage and I felt better. I felt like I had a group therapy session with a bunch of people that I may or may not see ever again in life. And I got to say exactly how I felt, and it was liberating. I said, Eureka.
You found it.
I found it.
So you knew that you were going to make a career out of being a stand-up comic.
I knew I wanted to.
Can we talk? I feel like I can talk to you. I can talk to you, right? Okay, you 60. I should be able to tell you something.
What you've told me about the comics you look up to, I can see that you like the comics who, kind of push the boundaries. So I'm wondering how you feel in today's kind of PC culture. Like what we saw happen with Kevin Hart. It seems like it might be a challenging time for comics who do like to kind of push the boundaries. And what do you think of that whole thing?
You see my foot? Do you see my foot? I think that that's garbage. I think people as a whole, we need to relax. Comedy is a risk.
Yeah.
It's a risk.
And it always has been.
And when we get on stage, sometimes, the stuff that you think is amazingly hilarious, it ain't funny at all. And you get out there, and sometimes the stuff that you had no idea was funny is hilarious. It's just jokes, basically. I'm not trying to hurt nobody's feelings. I'm personally only trying to feel better. I don't have insurance, so I don't want to pay for therapy. So I use you guys. Laugh or don't laugh. Typically, when I finish talking, I feel better.
Y'all having a good time in here tonight? Clap if you're having a good time.
Seeing that makes me want to get out more and see some of the great comics we have right here in DC.
I watched some of her performance from there, and It was really good. I really liked her. It
Yeah.
was funny. When we wrote in the beginning, no holds barred.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really, I mean, that's what it is.
Just a little warning, yes.
It really is. I was surprised by some of it, actually, especially if you're sitting in the crowd and, you know, we were talking about if you're sitting in the crowd and just there to take in the performance, or maybe you have a snack, and then all of a sudden, there's the comedian standing over you.
Yeah, you got to be
You're part of the
ready,
show.
you know.
But I do like her story where she started doing something else. She had a different career, affordable housing, and then she decided, you know, I think I'm good at this. I'd like to try it out, and it's worked out for her. Just kind of proves that if you have a dream, go for it, no matter when you pursue it.
Right, and we should mention a lot of great comics have kind of come out of the DC comedy scene. Everybody knows about Dave Chappelle, but also Martin Lawrence and Wanda Sykes, some of the others who's kind of used DC as a proving ground before they kind of went on to bigger markets. So you can catch them here before they explode,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Definitely. All right, well, after the break, if you're a beer connoisseur, this tour is for you. We're headed to Ward 5 to go inside DC Brau Brewery. Welcome back. It wasn't that long ago the District of Columbia was considered a beer town without a brewery to call its own. That all changed when DC Brau co-founders Brandon Skall and Jeff Hancock opened the doors to their brewery in Ward 5.
Ever since, they've been crafting award-winning brew with a growing reach on the East Coast. Here's their story.
It's been said, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
A shared love of alcohol, particularly beer.
It's what brought the co-founders of DC Brau Brewery together.
We met at a house party. We both had a love for beer at that point. I was already working in the industry. Brandon was as well, just on the wine side. We saw that there was a need for a homegrown DC brewery that produced beer. So we kind of saw the kind of hole in the armor and decided to move forward with the brewery, and we incorporated and formed in 2009.
And that's just where their story begins. Now in business for 10 years, the warehouse on Bladensburg Road in some ways looks like a family business.
At its heart, it is. We call it our extended family. We got right around 45 employees between full and part-time.
In other ways, it looks like part of a full-scale factory operation, built to distribute its unique craft brews to the district and surrounding states.
This room houses all of the empty cans before they get filled with beer. Each one of these pallets holds a little over 8,000 cans, so if I had to estimate, I mean, we're probably between 500,000 and 750,000 cans currently. They get carted over by forklift. They get loaded in this part of the machine, which is called a depalletizer. They then get raised off to a conveyor belt. That conveyor belt goes down, and then they go to the filling unit, where they get filled, and then right after that is the seaming unit, where the lids get affixed to the can. And they take a little journey on the conveyor belt and then come into this machine here, which affixes a six-pack. And then when it pops out, we get perfectly canned and six-packed beer that gets palletized and then put in our large refrigerator.
And in case you were wondering,
it does come out cold. We package the beer right around 30 to 32 degrees.
Visitors can try it out fresh, on tap in DC Brau's tasting room. And judging by the long list of recognitions, people like what they're serving up. The brew company even won 2017's Best Food and Beverage Producer of the Year from the Restaurant Association of Metropolitan Washington.
DC Brau has won a good amount of awards, both for our beer and also some recognition for what we've done community-wise.
Giving back to the city that has supported them over the years is part of the philosophy that's behind their business.
We really wanted to brand our brewery around the community. We're both from Washington, D.C. area, and we really wanted to focus on that. But there's a responsibility that comes with that. So giving back is a very big part of what we do here, both to charities and also just to folks showcasing our city. For example, our Made in D.C. Marketplace. We do that every year. We do it on Small Business Saturday, and we feature multiple vendors who are all here producing products right here in the district.
A philosophy about creating something unique and embracing the city they call home.
I love that wall of cans that they have. It's like artwork, you know?
Yeah.
It looks like art. One thing I realized actually now just thinking about this is that I'm being a bad co-host, I think, because when you went and toured Nice Cream.
Right.
And Adams Morgan, you came back and
A pint.
And I had ice cream.
Yes, a whole pint.
I'm sorry.
You go to the brewery and nothing.
No growler.
Nothing, no.
I'm sorry. I should have brought back a growler for you.
Next time. And, I feel very comfortable, around all this brewery stuff. Originally, I'm from Milwaukee, so I love this stuff. I was looking forward to maybe trying something, but anyway, maybe that's something for the weekend.
I messed up.
Okay, next time.
You can actually tour DC Brau if you'd like yourself. On Saturdays, they do free tours.
Okay.
So you can go check out the operation.
And then I'll try it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for this show, but we do have time for one last thing.
All right, one last thing this week. We were talking about the mayor's second-term outlook in one of our recent shows, and one thing I wanted to point to was that when the mayor came up to take the podium, she had a very nice and special introduction by a couple of high school students from Banneker. Here, take a look at this.
Good evening, everyone. I am Bria Snell.
I'm India Skinner.
And I am Michaela Sharif.
And we are the S3 Trio.
As many of you know, we were finalists in a prestigious nationwide NASA high school competition. In fact, we were the only all-black women team in the competition. We developed a unique method to help purify lead-contaminated water after we noticed some of our school drinking fountains could not be used. During the online voting portion of the competition, we were confronted with racist attacks, focused on ensuring that we did not win.
While we were all upset by the incident, we pressed on and eventually came in second place.
They have a really interesting story, don't they? Being able to overcome what they had to overcome in their competition and then develop something that they can actually use in school.
I love to see that, and you can just imagine these girls are in high school and they're putting together a water filtration system.
Yeah.
So just imagine what they'll be doing in the future.
I mean, there's a problem that they needed solved in their school, and they were able to do it. And not only that, they got the city's attention and they were given a grant, a $4,000 grant, to keep on working on developing this and find a way that they can use it in more schools across the district, which I think is just a great thing.
Nice. And then they introduced the mayor.
And they introduced the
mayor.
They did a very good job at it too. Speaking in public, no matter what age you are, that can.
Yeah, definitely.
They did very, very well. So that is all the time that we have for today. But we'd like to thank you for joining us and remind you that we have plenty of other shows and features and content for you to check out if you search YouTube. Go on and search Entertain DC. We have all sorts of programs there for you to see.
Check it out. See you next time.